Caitlin Clark reminded everybody who she is in the Fever win over the Wings in what was a blowout victory. One where Clark didn't even shoot the ball well again, but she completely dominated the game and shows the difference between her and everyone else through her playmaking.
No one outside Indianapolis expected the WNBA's biggest joke to flip the script in a single lunar cycle, but here we are. 3 weeks ago, the Indiana Fever were 3-9, their locker room colder than a meat freezer. And their rookie phenom, Caitlin Clark, looked more hostage than hero. Tonight, they walk into arenas with the swagger of title favorites, fresh off a 102-83 demolition of Dallas that set the league on fire. What in the world happened? Keep watching, because the answer isn't just one twist, it's an avalanche.
Hey, Caitlin Clark said, folks, forget what she's talking about. Today, I'm gonna run the show. Today, I'm going to control the pace. Today, I'm going to dictate how this team plays basketball. And in the first half, we saw exactly that. Natasha Howard running the floor. Yeah, you heard that correct. Natasha Howard running the floor. Yeah, I should. Folks, fans have a voice. Sometimes when the noise gets too loud and they're tired of hearing from it, they say, let's just buy it a little bit. Let's let Caitlin Clark be Caitlin Clark. Let's not pull the reins back too much. And in that first half, we saw exactly that.
Tension seeped from the walls of the Indiana Fever's practice gym, like cold air from a cracked window. You could feel it the moment film session began. Chairs scraped back with just a little too much force. Laughter replaced by tight-lipped silence. And veteran DeWanna Bonner staring lasers through every clip that featured Caitlin Clark's name in neon on the telestrator. Bonner had imagined herself the franchise's North Star, but by mid-June, she was logging DNP personal reasons and mumbling to reporters about unresolved issues. Practices turned hostile, teammates split into camps, and Clark, drafted as the savior, looked more hostage than hero, dribbling through drills while side-eyed resentment thickened the air. The growing rift wasn't just personality clash, it was philosophy. Some veterans wanted a slow, methodical half-court game, the same blueprint that had kept Indy irrelevant for years. Clark wanted runway, hit-ahead passes, rim runs, and three-point barrages. Each missed connection on the court sparked a fresh argument off it. Film sessions felt as icy as the scoreboard. The Fever stumbled to 3-9, opponents sneering at Indy's collapse, and fans flooding social feeds with memes about wasted talent. Even head coach Stephanie White, renowned for calm, began pacing like someone searching for the fire alarm. Insiders whispered that a breaking point was imminent, but few predicted how sudden or how cleansing it would be. Because when the locker room volcano finally erupted, molten change would sweep through the franchise, burning away the dead weight and forging something entirely new. But first, the lava had to flow. The boil finally burst on June 26. In a move that hit the transaction wire like a thunderclap, Indiana cut DeWanna Bonner loose. No trade package, no drawn-out buyout, just a curt waiver notice and a franchise-altering exhale. Reporters scrambling for quotes got only a terse best for both parties, but insiders described the moment as a spiritual cleansing. The vibe in practice flipped in a single heartbeat. The music came back on. Trainers high-fived players between drills, and a rookie named Ari McDonald, signed on a hardship contract the same afternoon, crashed layup lines like she'd waited her whole life to punch the gas pedal. That night, social media lit up with clips of Dave Portnoy cackling, analysts debating whether Bonner had subtracted by addition, and Fever fans in the comments section typing the digital equivalent of a standing ovation. Inside the locker room, the difference was almost eerie. Where tension once coiled, you now heard laughter ricocheting off cinder block walls. Clark's suggestions during walkthroughs were no longer met with folded arms, but with eager nods and got it echoes. Players who'd spent the season trudging through possessions suddenly sprint cut, hunted corner threes, and clapped for each other like rec league buddies. Head coach Stephanie White kept things simple. Run, have fun, trust your eyes. The collective sigh of relief was so loud it registered on local weather radar, a phantom breeze rolling straight out of Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Indiana hadn't just removed a disgruntled veteran, they'd performed an exorcism, banishing every ghost of ego that haunted their floorboards. And in the vacuum that followed, a wild, crackling energy rushed in, one that Sophie Cunningham was about to ignite like a box of sparklers tossed on a bonfire. But that's the story waiting just ahead. If Bonner's exit was the fuse, Sophie Cunningham was the spark. 2 days after the waiver wire shockwave, she jogged into practice, ankle-wrapped, grin blazing, and detonated every leftover pocket of apathy. Cunningham moves with the urgency of a triple espresso shot, and she poured that jolt straight into a roster still blinking in the sunlight of its newfound freedom. During shell drills, she barked defensive rotations like a drill sergeant doing stand-up comedy. In scrimmage, she chest-bumped rookies hard enough to loosen fillings. When Clark rifled a no-look dime through traffic, Cunningham stopped play, arms overhead, yelling, "Freeze the frame! This is the future!" Teammates laughed, then leaned in, then started high-fiving the moment the pass left Clark's hand. Translation completed. What once looked like flashy risk suddenly felt like religion. The contagion spread faster than any flu bug. Natasha Howard, notorious for coasting, began sprinting rim to rim like she'd made a bet with a stopwatch. Kelsey Mitchell rediscovered the joy of leaked-out layups, flashing that easy smile every time Clark's outlet pass whistled past her ear. Even the usually stoic Aaliyah Boston cracked jokes between stations, clapping so loudly after each made three that trainers checked their decibel meters. Cunningham's real genius wasn't her stats. It was turning belief into a team-wide reflex. Every practice rep ended with a huddle chant of, "Why not us?" And no one said it louder than the vets who'd once resisted. By week's end, the Fever weren't just practicing better, they were glowing. Reporters showing up for interviews talked about new electricity in the air, like the building itself had been rewired. And that current had a single destination, the hands of Caitlin Clark. Now surrounded by teammates ready to run wherever she pointed. The engines were roaring, the runway clear, and the league was seconds away from witnessing what happens when you give a prodigy open sky. Then came the moment Indy finally took the governor off its sports car. Freed from half-court handcuffs, Caitlin Clark flipped the entire geometry of the floor. Overnight, her stat line mutated from promising to downright unsettling. 17 points on pedestrian shooting? Fine. Balance it with 11 or 13 assists, 5 boards, and a handful of thefts that kill rallies before they sprout. Against Dallas, she orchestrated a 102-83 symphony, lobbing 70-foot lasers that looked less like passes and more like physics glitches. One clipped wing three-quarter court dart even froze the ESPN commentator mid-sentence. The replay clocked it at 1.2 seconds from fingertips to finish. You could almost feel defenders age in real time, chasing shadows that kept teleporting behind them. What makes Clark terrifying isn't just the numbers. Though she's already top 5 all-time in points plus assist double-doubles, and it's season 2, let that marinate. It's the gravitational pull she exerts. Teammates now sprint lanes the instant her eyes drift forward because they know the ball will appear. Mitchell scores with the tidy efficiency of a Swiss train. Howard dunks layups the moment she crosses half court. Boston devours putbacks like they're appetizers for a feast still to come. Clark isn't demanding the spotlight. She's installing track lighting so everyone else glows too. That kind of leadership doesn't just elevate talent, it rewires confidence. Players who once hesitated on open shots now launch without a blink, convinced the rookie queen has accounted for every variable before the ball even leaves her hand. Opponents study film, tweak schemes, throw box and ones, and still walk away scorched. Coaches whisper that the only way to stop Indy's rookie conductor is to steal the baton, and no one's figured out how to pry it loose. Because here's the secret. Clark's real weapon isn't range, or vision, or flair. It's tempo. She dictates the cadence of an entire building, faster than a heartbeat, slower than a trap, always one tick beyond the scouting report. And the Fever, they've embraced the chaos. Up next, Stephanie White codifies that frenzy into a system that makes adrenaline feel scientific. And the whole league is about to get a lab demonstration. Coach Stephanie White looked at the joy exploding in practice and decided to formalize the frenzy. Out went the snail-paced horn sets that clogged the paint. In came a manifesto taped to the locker room wall. 4 seconds or less to cross half court. First good look always green. Everyone rebounds. Everyone runs. The Fever started treating defensive stops like springboard launches. Wing outlets flew so quickly that by the time broadcasters finished naming the rebounder, the ball was already kissing glass at the other end. The data flipped almost overnight. Since July 1st, Indiana leads the league in paint points, 58 a night, and fast break scoring, while trimming turnovers by nearly a quarter. Assists are up 31%. Opponents' transition defense ratings look like haunted house heart monitors. Even film junkies noticed the subtler tweak. White stations Aaliyah Boston at the high post on early actions, dragging rim protectors away from Clark's driving lanes, then slingshots Boston down for a steal once help commits. It's basketball judo. Use the defender's own urgency against them. Trust followed structure. Mitchell's three-point clip climbed into the mid-40s. Howard's rim running now turns half-court possessions into layup drills, and McDonald's Speed adds a turbo button to second units. White keeps timeouts short, her message shorter, gas pedal. The players respond with a collective nod and a 9-2 run before the Gatorade lids snap back on. But the most startling byproduct wasn't on any stat sheet. It was the swagger. Indy's bench stands on every bucket, waving towels like matadors, daring the next charge. Visiting arenas hear boos fade into nervous silence once the first Clark to Mitchell laser whistles through. And that confidence doesn't just stay local, it travels, turning road crowds into reluctant witnesses. Yet the Fever's high-octane renaissance is doing more than rewriting their own box scores. It's sending tremors through the entire WNBA ecosystem. Ticket offices, TV trucks, rival scouting meetings. Because when one team accelerates the sport, everyone else feels the G-force. And those league-wide aftershocks are exactly where our story races next. Outside Indiana, the shockwaves feel almost seismic. Ticket offices from Boston to Phoenix report sellouts the moment Fever At appears on the schedule. Fans who never cared about women's hoops are scalping nosebleeds just to glimpse Clark throw one impossible pass. League Pass subscriptions surged nearly 50% in July alone, and social timelines that once slept through W games now explode with highlight reels before halftime. Networks scramble for extra camera angles, sponsors elbow into timeout slots, and merch kiosks can't keep 22 jerseys on the rack longer than a TikTok loop. The attention isn't all cheers, though. Veterans on rival teams mutter about rookie whistles when Clark grazes the paint, while pundits debate whether Indy's turbo tempo is good basketball or glorified track meet. Meanwhile, every arena DJ cues their loudest mix because a hush falls over the crowd each time Clark crosses midcourt. Nobody wants to blink and miss the next physics-defying assist. Even league execs, thrilled by the revenue, fret about competitive balance. How fast can the rest of the WNBA upgrade before Indy turns every matchup into a track meet referendum? Yet controversy breeds clicks, and clicks pump oxygen into the sport. The Fever have turned regular season Tuesday nights into primetime events, and the league rides the slipstream, whether out of excitement or sheer necessity. But the real test of this phenomenon isn't the buzz, it's the gauntlet waiting on the calendar. 5 road games in 8 nights lurk after the All-Star break, and gravity always fights back. Can the hottest story in basketball keep the throttle down when fatigue, scouting, and hostile crowds all tighten the runway? Section 07 taxis you straight into that turbulence. Tonight's stop in Brooklyn, their second game in 24 hours, doubles as both a stress test and a statement opportunity. The Liberty have title aspirations, the Barclays crowd is sold out, and Clark's minor groin tweak will be probed by defenders who hunt weaknesses like sharks scenting blood. A win nudges Indiana to 13-10, and all but locks them into the Eastern top 4. A stumble reminds everyone that momentum is rented by the hour. Either way, the Fever barely have time to ice knees before hosting the league itself. All-Star Weekend lands in Indianapolis on July 19th, with Clark in the three-point shootout and the marquee game, an event local marketers are already calling the Coronation. Hype is oxygen, but it can suffocate young legs, and the schedule that follows is unforgiving. 3 nights after the confetti, Indiana flies straight back to New York, July 22, for a rematch, then faces the defending champ Aces at home, July 24, before a 7-city sprint that reads like a frequent flyer nightmare. Chicago, Phoenix, Dallas, Seattle, Los Angeles, and Phoenix again. 5 road tip-offs in a 12-day blur. Fatigue, advanced scouting, and hostile arenas will all conspire to slow Indy's turbo engine. How they navigate that gauntlet will determine whether cute playoff story upgrades to legit dark horse contender. The good news? High-octane systems travel better than offenses that rely on perfect timing. Legs tire, but tempo bends defenses regardless of zip code. The gamble? Sustaining the emotional pitch that's powered this surge, while every video room in the league dissects each cut, outlet, and pre-programmed glance from Clark. If Indiana emerges from that road grinder still north of 500, the Eastern hierarchy will need rewriting in permanent marker. And the rest of the W? They'll have roughly 4 weeks to find a higher gear, or watch the rookie revolution blaze past in a streak of scarlet and navy. A month ago, whispering Indiana Fever and championship in the same breath felt like a punchline. Today, it sounds like prophecy. What changed isn't just a roster move or a hot shooting week. It's a wholesale identity transplant. The Fever no longer tiptoe through games. They barrel in, hijack the tempo, and dare opponents to keep pace. Caitlin Clark's gravity has turned teammates into meteors. Coach White's Greenlight Manifesto has weaponized joy, and every sellout crowd becomes a proving ground for a rookie rewriting possibility in real time. Critics will call the surge unsustainable, point to tough road stretches, or mutter about sophomore walls. Maybe. But here's the truth swirling through Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Belief is harder to box in one than any star player. Indiana has bottled it, shaken it, and let the fizz spill across the league. Whether the coronation comes this autumn or next, the power map has shifted. The future, once talked about in hypotheticals, now sprints the length of the court, firing a no-look dime before defenders can even locate the horizon. So buckle up. The rookie queen has found her kingdom. The flames are only rising, and every opposing game plan might as well start with the same warning label. Objects in mirror are faster than they appear. Success always arrives with stowaways, pressure, envy, and 1,000 tiny distractions whispering, "Now prove it every night." For the Fever, that chorus grows louder with each sold-out arena. Local car dealerships dangle endorsement deals, late-night hosts request interviews, and teammates scroll social feeds that rank their chemistry like stock prices. The risk isn't just fatigue, it's complacency masquerading as comfort. One sluggish start, one half-hearted closeout, and the narrative flips from revolution to overhyped. Coach White sees the trap and counters with a rule. Celebrate wins for 24 hours, then erase the board. Practices begin with a silent minute. Players visualize the last bad possession they allowed, then ball up the memory and toss it in an imaginary trash can at midcourt. Ritual breeds focus. Meanwhile, rivals scheme in dark rooms lit by laptop glow. Las Vegas assigns a scout to track nothing but Clark's first dribble after a screen. New York experiments with a roving trap designed to force the ball from her hands before she crosses the timeline. Even San Antonio, miles from playoff relevance, circles Fever tape as a blueprint for its own rebuild. Indiana's meteoric rise doesn't just shift standings. It accelerates the arms race across the W, and hovering above it all is the calendar. August brings 6 games against top 4 opponents, each eager to stamp out Cinderella before midnight. The Fever will need more than highlight passes. They'll need grit in games where legs go leaden, shots rim out, and arenas spit venom instead of applause. Because fairy tales in pro sports only survive when the protagonists learn to thrive in shadows as comfortably as they dance in spotlight beams. How Indiana responds in that penumbra will determine whether this season ends as a stirring fling or the opening chapter of a dynasty. A season that once looked like a slow-motion train wreck has flipped into a live-wire manifesto. Play faster, dream bigger, and let a rookie queen redraw every boundary. Caitlin Clark didn't simply rescue a franchise. She ignited a movement that runs on no-look passes and unfiltered belief. The Fever's locker room metamorphosis proves chemistry isn't found. It's forged in the heat of uncomfortable decisions and unleashed potential. Now they stride into every arena like rightful heirs, challenging the old guard to keep up or clear out. Yet this coronation isn't sealed in gold. It's written in wet ink. The road gauntlet, the playoff crucible, the counterpunches from seasoned champions all loom ahead. But that uncertainty is the point. Dynasties aren't declared by scoreboard alone. They're born when a team refuses to surrender its audacity, even under the heaviest crown. Indiana's ascent tells every dream chaser watching, revolution doesn't wait for permission. So as the Fever huddle at center court, jerseys drenched, smiles volcanic, remember this moment. You're witnessing the first sparks of a reign that could redefine an entire league. The future isn't on the horizon. It's sprinting down the lane in scarlet and navy. Eyes up, already seeing the next impossible pass. Long live the Queen. And may the rest of the W find enough oxygen to keep pace.